King Charles thought it would be just another message, just another quiet attempt, but what actually arrived at Windsor that day wasn't a request, it was a move so bold, so calculated, it dragged Prince William's title straight into the center of a silent royal war. And suddenly, nothing inside those palace walls felt stable anymore, because this didn't begin with shouting. It began with stillness, a routine alert, a gate, a name, and then Prince Harry standing outside a restricted Windsor entrance, not waiting politely, not requesting gently, but demanding access to a private strategy meeting that was never meant for Prince Harry. And here's where everything twists. Prince Harry didn't arrive empty-handed. Prince Harry arrived with a document carrying the weight of authority, a document stamped with something that didn't belong to Prince Harry at all, the title of the Prince of Wales. Pause there for a second, because that's not a small detail. That's not a misunderstanding. That's a line you don't cross unless you believe you can get away with it, or unless you're desperate enough to try anyway. And the moment King Charles saw it, something shifted. Not anger first, not even disbelief. It was recognition. Recognition that this wasn't about family anymore. This was about power. The air reportedly froze as King Charles faced Prince Harry directly. And what happened next wasn't emotional, it was absolute. No hesitation, no negotiation. King Charles refused, completely, coldly, publicly, and when that refusal landed, it didn't just shut a door. It exposed something much bigger, that Prince Harry had attempted to use Prince William's authority as leverage to force his way into a space he was no longer allowed to enter. Why would Prince Harry do that? Why take that risk? Why step into a role that wasn't Prince Harry's anymore? That's where the pattern begins to form, because this wasn't a random moment, it was a continuation, a buildup. A series of decisions that kept testing the same invisible boundary until suddenly that boundary pushed back. King Charles didn't argue. King Charles didn't explain. King Charles turned away, walked past Prince Harry, and ordered security to remove Prince Harry immediately. No scene, no second chance, just action. And in that action, a message so clear it echoed through every corridor of Windsor: titles are not tools, and family does not override protocol. But look closer, because the real tension isn't just in that moment, it's in what led to it. The monarchy doesn't operate on emotion. It never has. Every privilege, every title, every appearance of power is tied to something deeper: responsibility, duty, control. And when Prince Harry stepped back, that entire structure shifted. Not quietly, not cleanly. It fractured. The Sandringham Agreement wasn't just paperwork, it was a boundary. A line drawn in ink that said clearly, no use of royal status for personal gain. No blending of private ambition with institutional authority. And yet, here was Prince Harry, standing at a gate, holding a document that seemed to blur that line completely. And then comes the contrast, because while Prince Harry was outside the gate trying to get in, Prince William was already inside, steady, consistent, expanding influence, taking on global roles, reinforcing trust, moving forward without noise. That difference, that contrast, it's not just symbolic, it's structural. It's the reason why one door stayed closed. So when King Charles reminded everyone present about the Sandringham Agreement, it wasn't a lecture, it was a warning, a reminder that the system wasn't broken. The system was being challenged. And challenges like that don't get sympathy. They get shut down. And still, something about that document lingers, because it wasn't issued by the palace. It wasn't approved by Prince William. It wasn't recognized by anyone inside the system. So where did it come from? Who helped create it? And why did Prince Harry believe it would work even for a second? Because this wasn't just a failed attempt, it was a signal, a sign that something behind the scenes is still moving, still testing limits, still pushing against a structure that refuses to bend. And just when it looked like the Windsor incident had ended with that silent rejection, the real unraveling began not outside the gates, but deep inside the system itself, where every detail started to be pulled apart, examined, and questioned. Because what happened wasn't just a breach, it was a crack in the structure that forced the entire institution to look inward. The moment Prince Harry was escorted away, the focus shifted immediately to the document, that single piece of paper that had carried the authority of the Prince of Wales without the knowledge of Prince William. And suddenly, it wasn't about confrontation anymore, it was about origin, about intent, about how something so precise could appear without ever being approved. The administrative review didn't move slowly, it accelerated. Quietly, intensely, methodically, every department was asked the same question: who issued this? Who validated this? Who even saw this before it reached the gate? And the answer that kept returning was the same: no one. No internal department, no official channel, no authorization. That That absence didn't calm anything. It made it worse. Because if the system didn't create it, then someone outside the system had learned how to imitate it. And that's where the deeper pattern started to surface. Because this wasn't the first time boundaries had been tested. Years of friction had already built up following the decision to step back from official duties, and each moment since then had carried the same underlying tension: where does personal identity end and institutional authority begin? The framework had been clear, the Sandringham Agreement had been explicit, but what unfolded at Windsor suggested something else entirely, something more persistent, more deliberate, almost as if the rules themselves were being challenged again and again until one finally snapped into response. Investigators began tracing the document itself, not just its content, but its construction, its language, its formatting, and what they found only deepened the unease. The structure mirrored official communications almost perfectly. The phrasing aligned with internal standards. The presentation carried the unmistakable signature of something that looked real enough to pass at first glance. But it wasn't real. It was assembled, crafted, built from something that once existed but should have been inaccessible. And then the revelation that changed the tone: completely legacy systems, old communication channels, dormant digital pathways that had remained quietly active long after roles had changed and structures had been reshaped. Those forgotten fragments of the system had become vulnerabilities, and in those vulnerabilities, someone had found just enough access to recreate the appearance of authority. Not official, not verified, but convincing enough to attempt something that should never have been possible. King Charles didn't respond with hesitation. The reaction was immediate and sweeping. Every dormant account, every forwarding system, every trace of those old pathways was shut down permanently, without exception. The directive wasn't temporary, it wasn't conditional, it was final. And alongside it came another decision: any intermediary connected to the creation of that document would be cut off completely, removed from any future interaction with the institution. But even as those actions locked the system tighter than ever before, the broader message became impossible to ignore. This wasn't just about a document. It wasn't just about a gate. It was about the separation between family and function being enforced with absolute clarity. No exceptions, no emotional negotiation, no hidden flexibility. The rules that governed the monarchy were no longer being explained, they were being demonstrated. At the same time, the contrast continued to sharpen. While the investigation unfolded, Prince William remained steady, continuing public engagements, advancing national initiatives, reinforcing the role that had been placed at the center of this entire incident without ever stepping into the conflict itself. That silence wasn't absence, it was positioning. It showed exactly where authority remained and how it would be protected moving forward. And then came the final layer, the confirmation that no future request, no matter how personal, would bypass the established channels again. Every petition, every communication, every attempt at access would be processed through formal structures with no space left for improvisation or influence. The boundary had been tested once, and the response ensured it would not be tested the same way again.